where you're going to be able to see some of the things that will happen with this S.T.A.L.K.E.R. Now the game takes place in the area around Chernobyl. In 1986, the nuclear reactor there exploded and it was the worst nuclear disaster of all time. Now the developer of the game, S.T.A.L.K.E.R, are based in Kiev, which is about 100 kilometers away from Chernobyl, so they can all remember when it happened. So they've set S.T.A.L.K.E.R in the year 2012. And as part of their vision of the future, in 2006, some weird things start happening at the reactor, and this zone gets formed. Now the zone is 30 square kilometers in size, and that forms the game world. Now the zone is a very strange and dangerous place. It's full of mutants, but it's also full of artifacts, and that's the reason that you're in the game. Artifacts are irradiated objects that have amazing properties, and people want to get hold of them. People like governments and scientists. So a S.T.A.L.K.E.R is kind of like a scavenger who goes into the zone to retrieve these artifacts. Now as GSC is so close to Chernobyl, they've actually been there a number of times. And they've taken photography and video, and about 60% of the game world is accurately modelled on Chernobyl. Now the area in the game is absolutely teeming with life. So we're going to show you A-Life, which is our artificial intelligence system. All of these creatures behave in a completely unscripted way, but what they do have is a set of needs. They need to feed, they need to rest, so they hunt, they're territorial, they get tired, they're affected by the dark and the time of day. Now all of this happens without player intervention. The world is constantly changing as things move around the zone, so no two games of S.T.A.L.K.E.R will ever be the same. So we're going to show you now some of the more interesting mutants within the game, and this first one is called a bloodsucker. As you can see, he can turn himself invisible, so he's very elusive. Now he's actually a nocturnal creature, although he will be present during the day. But when the day-night cycle starts ticking over and it becomes night, you get to see a lot more bloodsuckers. Now this next creature is called a Chernobyl dog, and he has a psychic attack. Have a look at the rifle. What he's doing is affecting my aim. It's not actually harming me, but that's his defense mechanism. And here you can see the A-Life working. That bloodsucker is hunting those creatures because it needs to feed. These creatures have all been scared by the storm, so they're all running away trying to find cover. And it's all happening unscripted. So now we're going to see two new mutants that we haven't discussed before. The first one is called Pseudo-Giant. Now he's not particularly sophisticated. He's big, he's dumb, he's ugly, and he's very, very aggressive. Now if you look at him, you'll notice he's got very short arms. So that means his combat approach involves getting very, very close to you. And even grenades don't bother him that much, so you want to avoid him if you can. However, the next guy is different. He's called a S.T.A.L.K.E.R. Now physically he's very weak, but he's got amazing mental powers. So he's using telekinesis to throw things at me. Now his approach to combat is all about keeping you at range. Now you can also fire blasts of heat, but it's the same principle. He wants to keep away from you, because in this scene you can see when you're close to him, he's easily killed. So the mutants are very exotic, but the real challenge within the game are other human beings. There are 120 other stalkers in the zone, and they're all doing the same thing that you are. They're looking for artifacts. There's also a military in the game, so now I'm going to show you combat AI. Now all of the humans in the game are intelligent. They don't just attack you, they will assess you, they will look at the terrain. They'll crouch so they present a low target, and they'll use things to duck behind. They'll even work in teams, with one guy firing while the other guy moves. Now it was GSC's aim to have single-player combat feel like multiplayer combat, and that it's unscripted, it's fluid, and you never know what's going to happen. Now the engine that runs all of this is called X-Ray. GSC created it themselves. They built it all from the ground up, and they did not use any middleware. So what we're going to see now is group combat. This is combat AI working with you. If you look at the two guys to the left, they're as part of your team, but you're not controlling them. But you don't have to because they're intelligent. They're using cover and they're supporting each other's position. Now look at the guy up on the hill. He wants to advance toward us, but he won't just blindly charge. Instead, he'll crouch and he'll use that APC as cover. And of course, with the day-night cycle in the game, you're going to have combat during the evening. Now these three stalkers have turned their headlamps on because they obviously need to see where they're going. But by doing that, they've made themselves visible and vulnerable. So combat during the night is going to be very tense and very dangerous. So now we'll talk about the other stalkers in the game. As I said, there are about 120, but they don't operate individually. They form clans amongst themselves. Now these clans don't really get on with each other, so if you decide to join the clan, you have made an enemy elsewhere. So now we'll see physics. And this isn't physics in there for decoration, it's actually useful. Now the next example is bullet penetration. The bullets are actually coming through the wood and harming me. Now I could fire as well, and you can see my bullets going through it. So in multiplayer especially, cover will be very important. You've got to ensure that it's worthwhile. So here we're going to see what makes S.T.A.L.K.E.R a little bit different from other FPS games. This is trading and interaction. The guy in front is called the dealer. Now he acts as a kind of mentor to you. He gives you jobs to do. He'll tell you where to go and what to retrieve. And if you bring things back to him, he'll give you money. Now with that money, you can upgrade your weapons, buy equipment, health packs, food. But he'll also give you information about the zone so you can learn things. And he'll help reveal the plot to you. But you can also trade with other stalkers as long as you haven't offended them all. So here we see trade between stalkers. You'll notice when we look at this guy that he's going to raise his weapon and wave, showing that he doesn't mean us any harm. Now as we approach, we both lower our guns, and then we can start trading with each other. So again, we can exchange information if we want, but in this instance we're going to buy ammunition. But this could just as easily be things such as food, equipment, or even weaponry, just like with the dealer. So it pays to manage your aggression. You can play Stalker aggressively if you want, but remember, this is not like other FPS games. You are not a one-man tank or a one-man army. If you start picking fights with everyone, eventually the entire zone will turn on you and you'll be very vulnerable. Now in the real world, you couldn't bring down a helicopter like that with a machine gun, so it won't happen in Stalker. If you keep picking fights, then you may have to pay the ultimate price. So along with helicopters and other stalkers and mutants, there are other ways that you can be harmed within the game, but these are anomalies. Have a look at the screen, you can see that it's shimmering. Now we're not certain that that area is safe, so we're going to throw a bolt at it. Now that reveals to us that that's an anomaly. Anomalies are invisible pockets of energy that harm you, and they do it in many ways. Some of them are gravitational, they will throw you hundreds of feet into the air. Others will trap you and literally crush you to death. And as I mentioned, Stalker is an unscripted game, so the anomalies can also affect other creatures. Here we see a stalker who's been trapped by one, and he's now being killed, he's being crushed to death. So you have to be careful when you walk in Stalker. There's a very obvious anomaly to the left, but it's distracting us, and we blindly walk into another one. So you have to pay attention at all times. Now there are vehicles within Stalker, 6 in total, 4 cars, including this one. There's also a truck, and there'll be an armoured personnel carrier. Now you can use the vehicles in combat, you can obviously run people over. You can also fire, but only with a handgun, except in the APC, which has that machine gun turret. Now all the vehicles require fuel, and they also require maintenance. So you're not going to be able to just jump in an APC and ride around the zone killing everything. So now we come to the final part of the presentation, and this is the ICANN, the DX9 section. The X-ray engine is fully DX9 compliant. It has all of the effects that you would imagine. Volumetric heat haze, retinal blur, light blooming, multiple light sources, multiple shadows. But I'm not going to spout jargon, that you just look at the screen and see how good the game looks. See how the light sources can change and how they affect things. That's Stalker's headlamp, for example, or these strip lights. As the light moves, so do the shadows. And the bloodsucker we saw from earlier on is now going to make his appearance at the S9. Now obviously he still wants to rip your head off, and he still turns himself invisible. But when he reappears, have a look at the shadow he casts on the back wall. one of those games that the hardcore PC market is going to love. The guys who spend all of their time and their money upgrading their machines are going to get a real kick out of S.T.A.L.K.E.R because it shows exactly what their machines can do. So that concludes our presentation of S.T.A.L.K.E.R. However, there are a few more opportunities for you to learn more. If you go to the front desk, ask for Patel, she's our global PR manager. She can put you in touch with GSC. You'll be able to see that DX9 code running, for example. And also, just through here, there are 6 PCs with S.T.A.L.K.E.R multiplayer running. So you can go out there and have a game. Thank you very much for your time.